Well, hello and welcome to the Exponential Australia Church Leaders Podcast. We are delighted that you have joined us today. As always, we hear from a wide range of leaders from across the Australian church, all different parts of it, both geographically but also denominationally. And today we are joined by a wonderful couple that I am really looking forward to talking with. I met them a couple of years ago on a trip to London, of all places. And as I've come to hear their story and know some of their heart for ministry, it's just been a wonderful joy to hear some of the ways that the Lord has used them. And today we are joined by Josh and Berlinda O'Callaghan, all the way from Murray Bridge, South Australia. It's wonderful to have you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, great to be here.
Yeah, so good. Well, thanks for creating the time. And we're going to jump into some different areas of life and ministry today. But I guess as we do with all of our guests, I would just love to kind of give you guys a couple of moments to introduce yourselves, tell us about your life, your family, your ministry, what's brought you to Murray Bridge. Where is Murray Bridge for those who have never heard of Murray Bridge before?
It's on the mighty Murray River, so it's awesome. It was the first bridge that ever crossed the Murray. So it's an hour's drive from
I did not
Adelaide.
know that.
Yeah. About 20,000 people in the region.
Yeah. So it's a country town. Yeah, as Berlinda said. Yeah, so we've got a lot of farming community and different stuff around there, and but it's also kind of unfortunately known as the ice capital of Australia. So
I'm claiming it to be the ice cream capital because Golden North is setting up their factory.
Yeah, so Berlinda's been praying for a shift in that. So so that's just about to change in Jesus' name.
Come on.
But yeah, and Berlinda and I have been married for 23 years. And she was the one that first invited me to the church that we now lead. So we met in high school. Neither of us were Christians at the time, and then Berlinda came to faith, and then I came to faith through her invitation, and so I started attending church 25 years ago at the age of 20 and 19.
Yeah.
And and now we've been leading our church, which is called Lifehouse, part of the CRC denomination, for coming on 12 years. Yeah.
Incredible, guys. Well, I'm sure we're going to jump into different parts of that. That's just a very broad picture of the different ways that you guys have come to know Jesus and leading what is an amazing church. And we're definitely going to talk about what I think has been the legacy of both each of you, but also the church that you're clearly leading, is this heart to raise up and develop leaders. And that's going to, in many ways, be the focal point of our conversation today. As you and I were talking offline before we hit record, I think and I think many would agree, probably one of the greatest challenges in the Aussie church at the moment is around leadership development. How are we developing the leaders that are going to go and both lead the churches, but also plant the churches that we long to see across our nation? And so really today, the heart of this conversation is around leadership development and the way in which you both have just been so passionate about developing leaders. And yet I think the only appropriate place to start is really, where has that come from for you both? I know you've both walked out quite a personal journey in terms of like your life and how that's dovetailed and integrated into your ministry. I wonder if you kind of just dig a little bit deeper into what that's meant for you as a married couple.
Well, initially I wasn't able to have children. So at the age of 24, we took on a family whose mum had just passed away. And so we had from, how old? Like a 10-year-old right through to 18-year-old, 4 kids. And and it's just from then on, we've had 33 different ones live with us, 9 of which parents have passed away, been murdered, or different suicide attempts. So we've just basically taken on kids and youth, usually over the age of 18, who God just puts on our hearts. I've really loved to feel like God gives us the the view to find the gems underneath the soil and to polish them off and to let them shine for Jesus. So, yeah, seeing their potential.
Yeah. And so I think, with that, it was never sort of by design. We didn't know that we could have kids until a few years after we'd taken on this family. There was just a need of, this lady that had passed away from cancer in our church. And, the kids were in a place of need. And so, we had just bought this, 4-bedroom house with a granny flat out the back as sort of, a young married couple planning on having a big family of our own. But so then instead, we shifted into the granny flat and the family shifted in. And, and we just found it such a blessing to be part of their lives and help them through that time and of grief and different things like that. But then, sort of the second eldest daughter in that family was involved in, one of our earlier church plants that we did. So it was Hannah Long, who's married to Sam and part of Nova Church, and who led Youth Alive and in South Australia here. And so, to see that turnaround and that blessing for the investment that we put in. She lived with us, I think, on and off for about 6 years.
Yeah. We just love those kids, like they just, each one of us can carry some pain, but gosh, it's amazing what a bit of love can do, and just investing into, just reminding them of what their future could look like has been the greatest privilege. Like we've taken on others that we've had to detox methamphetamines or cocaine or alcohol, lots of different scenarios. And it has been tough. But again, God just speaks so clearly to the brokenhearted. He's so close to them and he doesn't let them go. And when there's been times where we've felt challenged and like we want to give up, but God never gives up on these kids, and he gives them prophetic words. And it's just been amazing to see him redeeming beautiful, beautiful kids. So,
Wow. I just wanted to firstly pause and just honor you guys for the posture and approach that you guys have clearly taken. It's both beautiful and inspiring, and what obviously would have been a very challenging, I can imagine a very challenging season for you both, and yet the way that the Lord has worked so powerfully through you both as spiritual mother and spiritual father is so beautiful to attest to. And as you were speaking, it reminded me of that quote that I think I heard Andy Stanley say, that your greatest impact may not be the things that you do, but the people that you raise up. And you guys are just wonderful evidence of that in your heart to raise people up, and that kind of real mentality of, like you said, Berlinda, giving people a vision for the future of what, how the Lord may want to use them. And I wonder what, obviously started out very organically, very, in terms of having people live with you. I'm sure that the heartbreaking days, the challenging days, what did that look like in practice as you started to really kind of come alongside younger people and then those who are stepping into roles of leadership to kind of begin to instill in them and encourage them and equip them, and some of the things that you did practically to raise up younger leaders?
Yeah. I mean, there's all the sort of, I guess, still the practical things that we did do. We've set up Bible colleges and different things like that. So there's obviously still that level of training and development that we have to have. We actually have a training and development model that starts from the age of 9. So,
wow.
So on a Monday night, so tonight there'll be a whole bunch of sort of young people that will, come into church, and they're part of a leadership development program. So we sort of have this, you hear about the leadership pipeline, but if it's a pipeline, it needs to have, those different aspects to that. So so as I said, from right through from the age of 9, there's like a leadership development a pipeline that then can go on to serving with young people and serving in youth, and then sort of on to Bible college and things like that. So that's, I guess, there is still that practical element of actual programs and different things like that is there, that needs to underpin what we do. But I think, more than that, it's the organic life on life, skin on skin stuff that is really important. It's being there, for the decision-making processes, for the, going to the school concerts, like going to the sporting events, teaching young people how to drive. I don't know, it's not necessarily on the normal CV of a pastor, but the amount of young people that we've taught how to drive, and just sort of being there, because again, that speaks to believing in them, believing in their future, sort of, help taking them to job interviews and prepping them up for all of that, because we believe in the individual. I think that's all part of it. People need to know that you're for them in each and every way, just as Christ was for us, which is, why he went to the cross, So it's just, there's definitely, I sort of say I don't think I'm the most dynamic, preacher. I'm not the greatest leader, but it's just having that father's heart to want to see people go further than what we've gone, and believing in people that I think has been the success. And I would say, my best ministry is not done on the platform, but around our kitchen table. So.
Yeah.
Wow. Berlinda, would you want to add anything to that? I mean, I just want to firstly absolutely concur and agree with you there, Josh. I just felt like as you were talking, almost like this godly rebuke to even sometimes the models of churches that we have led, which praise God for them. The CEO model of leading is sometimes really important. And yet, unless we are making space for people, and unless we are actually carving out margin in our lives to actually be with people, then as you rightly say, then we need that skin on skin. We need that organic, it's like they used to say that, the rabbi should smell like the shepherd. Or rather, the disciples should smell like the rabbi, beg your pardon, in terms of we actually need to be with people. And it's because of I guess the proximity that you've had with people is you've just seen this remarkable fruit come up beneath you guys. And I think that's a wonderful thing to celebrate.
Yeah. I mean, we've just been on so many car rides together with our young people, or, as someone's remembered bad memories of their past, I've held them on the kitchen floor as they've sobbed and wept, and, just been able to unpack memories with them and pray with them, and just listen to beautiful worship songs together, and go on little holidays together, or just being there for, around church. And we just have a whole heap of young people that see church as their third space. I think, like instead of just church and home and school to be their main spaces, church is their third space, and they want to be there. So just being there to answer their theological questions, and being available. And again, we've had so many beautiful farmers in our church that have bought cars for some of these young people, and so it's been a whole church lean in where we feel like we've adopted young people, and then our church sees themselves as the grandmas, the grandpas, the uncles, aunties. So it's not just us, because they see our adoptive surrogate children as their own extended family. It's been a whole church response, and to the point where, even when we've had to put some of the kids in hiding from, perpetrators, we've had farmers go, I'm in, I'm helping you. So, yeah, it's been a whole church, support.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
One of the sort of philosophies, a biblical philosophy that we've tried to, or that's been instrumental for me is, sort of in John 10:12, where Jesus is talking about the difference between the owner and the hired hand, and that when, the wolf comes, the hired hand flees because he's not sort of the owner of the sheep. And so not only us having that mentality of like, we want to be, that shepherd, as you were saying, the shepherd needs to smell like the sheep and all of that. But also sort of saying, okay, like for young people, how do they become an owner themselves? How do they own the vision? How do they own? And, because, obviously some people can be owners by contributing financially, but generally under 18s and particularly a lot of people in Murray Bridge as a low socioeconomic area, they can't maybe necessarily contribute financially, but we want to say, well, we want you to contribute. We want you to be owners so that when the tough times of life come, you don't run off, that you're invested. And the only way that they can do that is by giving them opportunity, by giving them, power and responsibility to be able to run things and lead things and have a go and take pastoral care for people themselves. And so I think that has just been a real, I guess, underlying philosophy that we've tried to sort of do all that we can to allow people to own the vision. It's not my vision. It's not my church. It's God's church. But all of us kind of have the opportunity to be owners of that and be part of that, no matter how young or old or skill sets or different things, to say, how can I make every individual an owner?
Very good. Very good. I love that, Josh. And I think that's a word in the season for, the Aussie church, hopefully for our listeners. And I hope that really encourages a bunch of people who are listening to you bring that encouragement to us. Where I'd love to kind of take a convo now is particularly around the difference between, raising up leaders on one hand and then actually releasing them. Because I think as church leaders, sometimes we can feel really good about raising up leaders. They might be doing a great job, as you say, maybe in our churches. Of course, it's God's church, but we develop this mentality of like, it's our church, it's our leaders. And yet you guys have just had this beautiful track record of actually releasing some of your best leaders to go and do amazing things across the state and around the country. And just talk to us, I guess, about some of the shifts that we need to make in those areas and even some of the risks or the costs that's involved with that. You mentioned Sam and Hannah Long before. Maybe tell us another story or two of those who've actually almost had to kick out the door in a really healthy way because you're calling them to something greater.
Yeah. And again, like that was probably a good example because, as I said at the beginning, like we're part of a denomination called CRC, and we actually planted that church into the ACC. So it was like different denomination. And so again, there's a lot of tension that goes with that. But I think, so not only was it a loss, to us personally, having, sort of, mentored and discipled them sort of, individually. So you're losing like a daughter or a whatever, but you're also, we're sowing teams of people and money because churches cost money and all of that stuff. But you're also sowing them into not just a campus model, but and not even just a different church, but into a different denomination. But I think, if we're kingdom hearted and kingdom minded and we're all about, growing the kingdom, however that looks, and we're wanting the best. It's hard and there's tears and there's grief and there's loss with that. But when you're sort of looking at ultimately growing the kingdom, I think how can we not, when we remember, if even just one person is snatched, from the kingdom of darkness and is going to end up in, his glorious kingdom of light, how could we not, in the light of eternity, in the light of that, how could we not sow and invest? And so I think, it is hard. Yeah, there is loss, but I think just keeping that in the forefront of your mind. This is why we do what we do. This is why, the people listening to this are wanting to plant churches and be involved. It's not to grow our empire. It's to grow his kingdom. And so I think, just keeping that in focus, I think is great.
I always remember what Paul Scanlon once preached on, that church is like a bus. And so whilst our hearts may be grieving because we know who has just got off the bus, those that we've sown and invested our lives in, those that we call family, and our departmental heads have just gotten off the bus. But those that at the next stop just get on the bus, they don't really care about who's just got off. They just want the bus to keep driving because they love our church and they love the atmosphere, and that it's like respite for their souls, and they're just leaning into God. So I guess for me, it's just a reminder just to keep driving that bus, and God is the head of the church. And it's just that principle of sowing and reaping. And if we're sowing, we're still going to reap. And it's a biblical principle. You can't go wrong. And God has blessed us with beautiful friends that have come into the church after planting churches.
And I think that's one of the things that we always had to, because basically the way that it's worked is that it's generally been like our youth pastor and their teams that have gone off. So we've done that sort of, 3 or 4 times where we've sent off different ones to plant different churches. And so then, there's a new youth pastor that has to come in, and we have to say, it's going to shrink. It's like, there's going to be this dip, there's going to be this time, but just know that it's not because you're a bad leader, but it's just, this is part of it. There's seasons, and, hang in there. We don't think that you're a bad leader. Inevitably it rises again. So, God has always multiplied things. I think that's probably the fear that, if there's, pastors of churches that are listening to this that are sort of thinking about planting and worrying about, sending their best off. Yes, there is a time where, the numbers go down and different things happen, but like God is always faithful to keep going back. And we've always ended up, with bigger congregations and more leaders than what we had initially. So I think it's just, riding the wave, seeing it from that kingdom perspective that, ultimately God's gonna see you through. Yeah.
But even in the way that you've described that, Josh, I can hear almost this seasonal approach where you're bringing in new youth pastors and a new team, and you're actually helping them to pioneer something. There is actually like a cyclic nature in terms of you're helping these younger leaders to pioneer a youth ministry. And so it should be no wonder that in 3 to 5 years' time, they're potentially going, maybe it's my turn to go and plant a church. And because they've had that season of being with you guys and the skill set that's been developed there, that actually that's been what's modeled. There's a pioneering enterprise to what you guys are doing.
Yeah. And as well, like, I think it's, it's hard, like, if you've got a youth ministry of, 130, 150, to find like a walk-up starter that's ready to run something that big. Yes. So it's like, it's okay that it drops, down to 30 or 40 and, because then the new leader gets to grow, like, as the team regrows. So it's, again, if you sort of, if you're not thinking about, I need to pull ready-made leaders in to lead something that's significant, but you kind of say, no, I guess, we talk about always setting people up to win. So we want, different people are at different stages, and they're going to win at different levels. And so we want people to, come in at a place that they can win, and then sort of, see them grow from there, rather than giving them too much that's too big. They will probably get there once they've, done all the steps along the way. I think, John Mark Comer talks about, it's not about just trying harder. It's about like training, the difference between trying and training. And so we kind of say, well, like, we don't just want people to just try harder and, be a better leader and just do better. But it's just like, no, we'll put you onto this training program, and you may not be able to run that far now, but the only way to be able to run a marathon eventually, is to train and, run this far today, and then run a little bit further tomorrow, run a little bit further tomorrow. And so I think having that mentality, just really helps that everyone's on this training program, rather than just, needing to be this perfect leader from the outset.
So, right. Love that. Well, guys, where I'd love to turn our attention to now is I'd love to ask you one more question before I kind of really, ask you for some concluding statements and all the different things that, you guys have learnt over the years and what you're doing. But the final question I'd love to ask before we get to that is particularly around, I guess, regional or rural church planting. Like there's sometimes in Australia, particularly in the church planting world, there's this dichotomy between city and country. And yet I think some of the most encouraging church planting happening across our nation is actually coming from the regions. Is actually those who have got a real heart to multiply leaders, multiply churches. It may not feel as good for the ego from time to time, but actually, as you rightly said, it is actually potentially having a bigger kingdom impact, because it's not about one leader or one church. It's actually about growing the kingdom. And I'd love to just kind of ask you guys some of your experiences, lessons learned from regional church planting. And some of those churches have gone to Adelaide and, they have gone elsewhere. But like, you guys being in a regional area, it would take a different mindset, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think, again, I was a teacher before I was a pastor, and one of the things that they told me, like, when I went to, university and was studying to become a teacher, is like, make sure that you don't teach near where you live, because like, seeing your students, like, down at Woolies or like down at the shops or wherever, like on the weekends, would be just terrible. And I'm like, what is that? And so I think one of the things that country is good at is it is about this, all of life stuff. And like, we live in this, this country town. And so we know all the people, and all the people kind of know us. And so there's this accountability, and there's this trust that's developed within us. I guess that integrity that we are who we say we are, not just on the platform, but on a Monday morning when we're walking our dogs, and when we're in the community. And so I think, as well as that, as I said, it gives us the opportunity to invest in the life of our leaders too, to be, a part of things. And so I think, sometimes, in the city, it's harder to develop that sense of community and that sense of family and that sense of belonging, because, it's that bit busier, and people are, geographically spread out more than probably what they are in the country, and not seeing each other, so often, so many touch points in the week. And so I do think, there is a unique blessing with being in the regions, and I think that is that sense of community, which is, again, like everything I think that we've said is that, I guess this Jesus model of discipleship or whatever, where he just did life with, the guys for 3 years, like, a bunch of, random teenagers probably, that were rejected from, normal Bible college and didn't make it through. They were just fishermen and tax collectors and all this stuff. And Jesus did life with them for 3 years. And after doing that, they were ready to lead lead the church. Like, so I guess that's our model.
We also have like 9 different chaplains in, all the primary schools and high schools and sporting clubs. And so it's our church that infiltrate the community as well. Good. It's our kids that are inviting their friends from schools, and like I think there was like 60% of different primary schools attending youth or events. So like it's a huge percentage of the town that know about our church, and even if they don't come, they tell their friends to come to our church. So if they need help, or if they need to detox, or if they need a friend, they say go to that church down that road.
Yeah. Even employers, ring me up and just say,
who have you got?
People that like employers that don't go to church themselves, but they just know that, that young people from our church will make good employees because they've got a support network around them.
Amazing. So it's awesome. Well, hey, final question, because I know that time is precious and you guys have got a lot on today, but I'd love to ask you really just, I guess, to summarize, 1 or 2 key lessons that you guys have learned in multiplying leaders, maybe for, leaders who are listening today going, I love their heart. I love their vision. I'd love to see something like that in my own context, crop up. Maybe that hasn't been a priority in the life of certain churches. Where would you suggest someone start? And maybe there's already been some great gold nuggets that have come out of our conversation, but how would you want to encourage leaders today to wrap up our time?
Yeah, I just think it's seeing people the way that Jesus sees people. That's really my heart for everybody, is just that, like, knowing that new creation message, knowing that, like, the transformative power of the cross, and kind of seeing people, as I said, with that hope, with that potential as Christ would see them. Because, they might not necessarily have skills now. They might be, as we were saying with the disciples, they might, they were a ragtag bunch of, rowdy teenagers that probably didn't really know what they were doing. And it's the same with people that come into our church. They're not necessarily coming in with all the skills. Yes. But, seeing them with the eyes of Christ and giving them a go and allowing the transformative power of the Holy Spirit to change people and equip them into being what God made them to be. So, that's our big thing, I think, is just, seeing what could be based on who Christ is, and his transformative work in the lives of young people.
Yeah. And it's often the naughty ones that make great leaders.
Absolutely it is. That's brilliant. Well, guys, I want to just again thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for being unsung heroes in the Aussie church in the way that you've loved people and that you've advanced his kingdom. It really has been an amazing pleasure to have this conversation and to kind of continue to witness the fruit that's coming out of your ministry as a couple, as a family, as church leaders. Thanks for taking the time and for all that you've done over the years.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. All the best.